praising him right there. Hallelujah. Won't he pick you up? Won't he turn you around? Come on, as he placed somebody's feet on solid ground. Oh, come on, I need somebody to just get excited with me. Won't he do it? Won't he pick you up? Won't he turn you around? Won't he place your feet on solid ground? Then the most important part of the song says, come to Jesus. Come to Jesus right now. Come on, I invoke you to just go with me to the throne of grace. Father God, we just thank you, God, for the worship that is going forth this far. God, we thank you for the communion, God. Understanding, God, what it means, God, that you sent your son to die on Calvary's cross. But not only that, God, but that he rose again and repaired the relationship between you and man. God, we thank you still today, over 2,000 years later. God, we just ask now, God, that you would go with us, God, as we present your word this morning, God. God, I pray that you would hide me behind the cross, God, that your people, God, would not hear the voice of Trent Christian, God, but that they would hear a word, God, that you have set forth for them to hear. God, we pray this and we ask this in Jesus' name.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Come on, let's go ahead and put those blessed hands together again. Amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And it's so fitting that we had the testimonies that were given this morning. Amen. Amen. And it's good to know that God is still moving in the lives of his people, and that he's still producing change in the lives of his people. However, there are some times where we feel that prayers go unanswered, that requests are made, and we may think that God is not hearing us at the moment. And what I want to do, I'll just go into the text right now. I want to summon your senses and your intellect to the book of Psalms. As we're looking in the book of Psalms, we're going to look at the 22nd division of Psalms. And we're going to go through the whole entire chapter, but for the brevity of time, we're just going to read the first two verses together. Amen. Amen. So, amen. We see that they have, the media team has it up on the screen. Amen. And if you have your Bible, I pray that you have it with you. We could just read those first two verses together. Amen. And it reads as thus. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my word? O my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season am not silent. Amen. Amen. The word of the Lord is blessed. Amen. We have been going through this hashtag series that God has inspired me with. The first one was Church Hurt, Grace Got You Mad. The second entry into the series was hashtag Cycles. Today I want to talk about hashtag Silence. Silence. It's very tough and a very difficult thing to deal with when you think about the silence from heaven. In fact, there was a 400-year period between the Old and the New Testaments. It's known as the intertestamental period. And there were a lot of unique events that happened during this time frame. There was a paradigm shift in Palestine that saw Hebrew culture then changed to Greek culture. But there was one specific thing that when I read about it, when I studied about it, it troubled me. See, for that 400-year time period, there was not a prophetic or inspired word from God. No word from any prophets, both major and minor. And that was for 400 years. You see, God, because of the apostasy and the hypocrisies of the children of Israel, decided that he wasn't going to speak to them until the coming of his son Jesus in the fullness of time. Now, let's just use our spiritual imaginations. I mean, can you imagine going through 4 days of your life, 4 weeks of your life, 4 months of your life, dare I even go to say 4 years of your life without hearing a word from God? Very troubling, isn't it? When you're used to communing with God on a day-to-day basis. And just think about how those people must have felt. For 400 years, heaven was literally silent. And the reason why I brought that up is because it reminds me of how David is feeling right here in the text. He starts off in the first verse and he says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And if that sounds a little familiar, Charles Spurgeon, who's known as the Prince of Preachers, once stated that this psalm was the most unique psalm of all the psalms in the book of Psalms. Simply because while David was waxing poetic, he was also speaking in the prophetic, because these were the same words that Jesus uttered when he was on the cross. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? David went on to say, why are you so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? Oh my God, I cry in the daytime, and thou hearest not, and in the night season I'm still not silent. Now let me paint the picture for you where David is at this time of life. You see, David at this point was on the roof. The first monarch of Israel, which was Saul, was putting some attempts on his life, and David was in hiding. And David is in a position right now where he's hiding out, and I guess the trials of hiding had just weighed on him so heavy that he had to cry out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? You see, David begins to wonder why someone who was anointed to be the next king of Israel finds himself at this moment without a word and an answer from heaven. And if I could park right there for a second, you know, sometimes when we go through things in life and the enemy begins to start pulling out his trick bag on us and we begin to go through things, the one thing that we start doing is we begin to question the anointing on our life. You see, David had to, be recalling in his head how the prophet Samuel had came and sought out his father Jesse and said, I'm here to anoint the next king of Israel. And as he looked upon his sons and he was about to anoint him, God said, nope, not him. And he went to the other son, nope, not him. He went through 6 other sons, and nope, not him. And then he said, Jesse, is there anybody else? And Jesse said, well, yeah, there's my youngest, he's out tending the sheep. And so he called for him to come forth, and the Bible described him as a ruddy, handsome man. And I know that the prophet must have been looking at him like, hold on, this little redhead little child, a pretty boy. He don't know nothing about war. He's not going to be able to stand as a king for the people. The people won't respect him. But God said to the prophet at that moment, that's your problem, is y'all look on the outside. But I look on the inside of him. And so the Bible says that as he poured the oil over David's head, that the oil began to run. Now remember, when he tried to pour the oil over the other brothers, the oil refused to come out. So David had to be thinking, God, I know you anointed me for this, because the prophet came and the oil wouldn't roll on any of my brothers' heads. Yet here I am, finding myself in distress. He had to call back the time when he was in the field as a shepherd, saying, God, I know it was you that protected me when the lion came to devour my father's sheep, when the bear came to devour my father's sheep. God, it's you that have carried me all of my life. Why, oh why, right now do I find myself hearing hashtag silence? And that's what the enemy will try to do to you. He will have you questioning the anointing that God has placed on your life, the very thing that God has destined you to do, just because you come up against some hard times. My brothers and my sisters, if I can just stop right now to encourage you just a little bit, that when you hear or feel like there is a perceived silence from heaven, that you don't stop moving in the gift and the area that God has operated and anointed you to move in. You know, life is not going to be easy. Pastor Bynum always says that he doesn't like when people say, you know, give us your hand and give God your heart and everything's just going to be all right. Oh, I got a feeling everything's going to be all right. And sometimes we have done the wrong thing of proliferating this idea to people who are struggling with becoming a follower of Christ. And they feel like, now I've given you my heart. God, now I've given you everything I have. Everything gonna be good right now. The devil is a show enough liar. In fact, most times when you decide to take up the mantle of a follower of Christ, that's when the enemy really starts to get busy and starts working on you, because before you wasn't a threat, but now you seem to be a threat because you're starting to follow and move in the anointing that you're in. Oh, David, if I could just inspire you right now. Don't worry about Saul who's searching you out. You are anointed and put in the position by God himself. So, my brothers and sisters, we can't do that. We can't get a little bit of trouble, get shaken up and get riled off and thrown off our square, and not be able to do the work that God has prepared for us. You know, when you go to work on Monday through Saturday, whatever day that you go, every time that you clock in, your job for that day is not going to be easy. I guess it's just me. I'll speak for myself. My job is not easy every day. Do I got a witness? There are some things that you're going to have to deal with. It could be paperwork. It could be people on the job. It could be a supervisor that gets on your nerves. It could be all types of things. But every day that you go to work, your job is not going to be easy. Yet and still, you clocking in consistently because there is a what? A payoff in the end. My brothers and sisters, the same thing should apply in the work of God. That you're not going to go through easy days every day doing the work of the King. However, there is a greater payoff that's in the end. Hallelujah. The next question he asks is, why are you so far away from me at the time of need? My God, I cried in the daytime. I cried in the nighttime. I cried in the night season, and I wasn't silent. So that means David was literally laying on his face, crying, begging, pleading God to intervene, and yet he was met with silence. My Sunday school teachers used to tell me when I was coming up that with great regularity, that all I had to do was knock, and the door would be open. All I had to do was seek, and I was going to find. I could come boldly before the throne and receive grace and mercy in the time of need. But my brothers and my sisters, what happens when you're knocking, but there is no answer? What happens when you're seeking, but there's nothing to be found? What happens when you're coming boldly before the throne of grace, and yet you're met with silence? You know, some of you might not want to agree publicly, and I understand. But privately, I guarantee all of us have questioned. Because it's hard sometimes to come to grips with the real truth, the confusing and even sometimes hypocritical view of the Christian experience. You see, we can pray and pray and pray. And in some seasons, it seems like God just is not going to respond. How many times have we been praying for a job, but still we end up unemployed? How many times have we been praying for a helpmeet or a spouse, but at the end of the day, we're still lonely? How many times have we been praying for hardships to pass us by, but at the end of the day, there is no relief? All I'm saying, my brothers and sisters, what is it that you do when heaven is silent? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we got some things to go to. The first point I want to bring up in what you should do when heaven is silent is you have to be able to find your praise even in the presence of pain. That's right. You see, David cried out in the first two verses, my God, why? Why? Why are you not hearing me? Why are you not coming to my aid? Why are you not following through with what I've been promised? Why are you turning your back on the one that you anointed? Why are you doing these things? But in verse 3, he starts up and says, but thou art holy. Oh, and I wish, see, that's the problem with church folks. Sometimes we don't know when to shout. You see, you've been crying in your night season and asking God, why are you turning your back? Why are you not helping me? But the first thing you have to do is, even in your distress, even in your time of need, even in your pain, be able to find your praise. You know what? It's okay. I didn't pray for this and you haven't given it yet. I didn't ask for this and it hasn't come yet. But thou art holy. You see, what we have to understand, my brothers and my sisters, is our pain has nothing to do with God's position. He is still God. No matter what we are going through throughout our lives, God is still God. So you got to be able to find your praise. And I know that this is difficult to think of, but I also know that many people believe that just because I've given my life to Christ, that things are going to be better and it's going to be easier and the enemy is not going to be on my back. That is a lie from the very pit of hell. That is when the enemy is going to attack you the hardest. And knowing that, you have to be able to say, God, it's okay, even though I feel like you're not hearing me in this season, thou art holy. You are still God. Even in the presence of my pain, I have enough belief in me to say, God, no matter what happens to me, no matter what goes on in my finances, with my health, with my family, God, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you are still holy. You are still God. You are still the one that reigns on high. The next thing you got to do, you got to remember, this ain't new to God. This is not new to God. In verse 4 and 5, David said, my fathers trusted in you, and you did deliver them. They cried unto thee and were delivered. They trusted and were not confounded. My brothers and sisters, you have to encourage yourself with what God has done sometimes in the past in order to get over the difficulties of your present. I understand that it's difficult to trust God in the perceived #silence, but you got to understand that God has worked it out for you before, and the songwriter said that you didn't bring me just far just to leave me right here. You got to understand that even though I'm confused, confounded, and don't know where to go, even though I'm lacking direction, I just put my spiritual GPS on and it says go right to the cross, because God, you're still holy and you're still on top. You still reign supreme. You did it before for my fathers. You did it before for future generations. God, I know that you can still do it for me. You got to understand that. God doesn't put you in a position just to leave you there. There is a destiny that has been planned for every person that is sitting in this church. Now, whether you walk in that destiny, that's all on you. But God has placed a destiny before you. What you have to do is align yourself with his will. And I'm not saying align yourself with his will when it's 70 and sunny outside. You have to align yourself with his will when the storms of life are raging, when things are going on, when it looks like you're not going to be able to get through. You got to be able to still be able to say, God, I trust you anyhow, even though I can't see where I'm going, even though it's not clear to me right now. I'm going to put all my trust and my faith in you because you've done it before, and I know if you did it before, God, I trust you and faith to you to do it again. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I can go from pew to pew, and everybody can give me a story of how God delivered them from something in the past. So you should never make your mountain of today look bigger than your God. Your God is always bigger and greater. David, calm down. You already have been anointed.
Yes, amen. Calm down. Yes.
You ain't got to sit here and worry and get fretful.
Oh God, oh God.
But you remember that this ain't new to God. It's not something that he's done for the first time. God has delivered his people time and time and time again. Okay, I know y'all need some examples. Y'all remember the children of Israel were wandering in the desert for 40 years. The Bible said it was enough for a whole generation to pass off. But yet and still, God allowed them to go into the promised land. Get this, not even with the one who started off the mission for them. Which means sometimes where you start is not going to determine where you end. And sometimes the people you start out with is not going to determine who you end up with. I don't know who I'm encouraging with that today, but there'll be some people who started off running the race with you in the beginning that might have tailed off and might have lost breath. But I'm still trusting and believing God and holding him to his promise that he was never seen the righteous. Never seen him distraught. Never seen, the Bible said, his seed begging bread. So if that's the God that I serve that brought out the children of Israel after 40 years, that's the God I serve right now. That's the God I serve when HIV and cancer stand in the way. That's the God I serve when bill collectors are calling. That's the God I serve when I'm unemployed and looking for my way. Because sooner or later, he's going to show up and do it again. And all it's doing is strengthening your testimony so you can go and tell somebody else, look, I was in a bad position, but let me tell you about this God that I serve. The God that I serve is undefeated. He has no challenges. There is no God above him. He is the Adonai God. And even though you feel like you're going through something that's too much, this ain't new to God. This is not new to our God. So don't make it seem like your problem is so big that God can't deliver you out. Sometimes I think God sits up there and have a little chuckle. Oh my God, look at this. Trent, you still praying that same old prayer. You didn't see when I brought you out before. You didn't see when I delivered you before. You didn't see when I carried you. You didn't see when I picked you up and I carried you to this next place. And you still got problems, believe it on me. You sit up here and you testify, you preach, and you pray. You know, I trust in you, God. I trust in you, God. But when you're in the midnight season, sometimes I cower up and I let fear overtake me. But the devil is alive. The God that brought me out way back when is the God that will bring me out today. I wish I had somebody that knew that if he brought you out back then, he's going to bring you out yet again. Can't forget who brought you here. The next thing, you can't let people devalue your worth. See, this is where we deal with it. David said, but I am a worm and not a man. A reproach of men and despised by the people. Now, can I speak to my men for a second? Ladies, y'all can jump in, but I need to speak to my men for a second. Men, y'all know we have this thing called ego and pride. And we will go down fighting if we think another man is disrespecting our manhood. I've seen brothers take a lot of things from a lot of people, but the one thing you ain't gonna do, you not gonna disrespect me as a man. I'm a grown man, dog. And we gonna sit up here and we gonna have to go to these if you think that you gonna come and disrespect me. But here we see David, the anointed David, the future King David, the one that killed the giant Goliath. That day, we see David cowering up and he said, you know what, I ain't even a man right now. I'm a worm. Come on, David, at least be a dog. I mean, you're gonna be a worm, you just gonna slither around all day. But that's how he felt. Then what he said? He said, all who see me sneer at me. They separate their lip and they wag their head. They saying, commit yourself to the Lord. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him because he delights in him. How many times have you had somebody that is not a believer in Christ try to ridicule you and judge you because you're going through a season in your life where you feel that God might be being silent, and they're sitting there laughing at you saying, look at that. I thought that was the God that could bring you out. I thought that was the God that was bigger than anything that you go through. I thought that was the God that would be able to save you. And some of us will let people devalue our worth, and we'll forget the promise of God where he said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Why did you start off, David, saying, God, my God, why have you forsaken me? He already said, I won't leave you and I won't forsake you.
I won't.
But sometimes we allow people to talk and to take us out of our mindset and understand what a believer is supposed to be. I'm supposed to have total, complete, and utter faith in this God. I'm supposed to be able to turn any burden that I have and give it to God. The songwriter said, take your burdens to the Lord and what? Leave them there. But yet still, it's some people that look at your lifestyle and say, you know what? You're supposed to be blessed. How is it that you're struggling financially if you're praying and serving this God? How is it that you're struggling physically if you pray and you serve this God? How is it that you sitting up here going through all these things if you're praying and serving this God? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you turn your attention to the man of Job, Job was a man that was after God's own heart. So much so that the enemy came up in the heavens and said, you know what, God, you know, you're doing too much for him. I bet you if you just take your hand off of him, he'll curse you. He'll curse the day that he was born. And you know what God did? God said, oh, you believe that? You think that? All right. Go ahead, do what you're going to do. Do what you're going to do. Just don't take his life. My brothers and sisters, if you don't get nothing else out this message, I want you to get this. If you can survive God, the devil ain't got nothing for you. If you can survive God allowing the devil to play with you, there is no trick that the enemy can come up with that can be mightier than your God. If God say, okay, you know what? Just because you think that this person isn't worth it, I'm going to go ahead and let you test him. And he sits back and he allows it. He says, okay, come on, show me to be who I am. Show me to be the God that I am. And I better believe that it better be your responsibility to sit there and say, you know what? Though you slay me, yet will I serve thee. Oh my God, you know, it don't matter what you put on me because I realize you allowed it to be. The devil can't do nothing that God has not granted him the ability to do. Don't go around thinking that the devil can cause so many problems in your life that you got to go to God and say, God, I can't get past what the devil did. God is saying the devil didn't do it, I did. And I did it to test you, to see where you're at, to see where your faith is. You say that you love me. You say that you believe. You say that you have faith. But what do you do when I decide to be silent? When you're laying on your face and begging and pleading, and I'm just sitting there like, I hear your petitions, but I need you to learn a lesson. The next thing, you can't forget who brought you here. Verse 9 and 10, David acknowledges that even in the midst of God's perceived silence, that God still carried him even from the time that he was in his mother's womb. So you can't forget who it is that brought you here and where they brought you from and how long they had their hand on your life. My brothers and sisters, it's nothing, again, that the enemy can do to you that is not ordained and predestined by God. So it doesn't matter what you go through on this side. He's doing it because he believes you're strong enough to take it. And if not, he's building your character to where you can be able to have a testimony to say, you know what, there were some times where I let the enemy's tricks get to me. Oh, but now on Christ, the solid rock, I stand. Every other ground I see is sinking sand. So I don't have to worry about what is going on. I don't have to worry about situations. They come and they go. That's what life is. But the one thing I know is my God is faithful to the end. And because he is faithful, I have no other choice but then to be faithful. Come on, somebody ought to be able to say that, God, no matter what is going on in my life, I choose to be faithful to you because you've been faithful to me. You brought me all the way from even when I was in my mother's womb. The Bible said that he knows every single hair that is on your head. And if that God that loves you and knows you that well to know every single hair on your head, why do you think he's just going to take you to a point and drop you off? No, that is a lie again from the pit of hell, because God loves you and loves you enough to carry you and loves you enough to keep you. David then affirmed in verse 11 that even though there's some trouble present, God is the only help that he knows. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed the pattern in this song, but David's been real wishy-washy. He's been real up and down. He's been real roller coasters. My God, why have you forsaken me? But thou art holy. Oh, but I'm a worm. I'm not even a man. But you have been faithful. You carried me from my mother's womb. So verses 12 through 21, he went back to telling God how big his mountain was, instead of telling his mountain how big his God was. And that's the problem sometimes when we have the silence from heaven, is that we feel because we think that God is not hearing us, then we got to complain a little more. And I'm not saying pray, I'm saying complain, because that's all it is. God has already given you the victory. He's already told you you're going to make it out. He's already made the way. So why are you questioning anything just because things are happening in your life? You should say, okay, God, you know, I see this as a stumbling block. Aha, devil, you used to get me, but now I see where you're at. If I could borrow from my sister, Minister Benjamin, sometimes there'll be a hole right there, and you be, excuse me, I got to get around that thing. I got to move past that thing because it can't trap me anymore. Sometimes we fall victim, but thank God we have a God that loves us and tells us that even if I fall in the hole, he will reach right down and pick me up, dust me off, and say, okay, I'm going to give you another chance to trust me. I'm going to give you another chance to believe on me. I'm going to give you another chance to have your faith tested. Even in my silence, I'm speaking more in silence than I am when you think you should.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord.
I would dare to say that during our perceived silence of God, we learn more about this God that we serve in our misery than we do on our mountaintop. There is more that we understand about the nature of God and the character of God, even though he said that his ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. But in the midst of pain, in the midst of trial, we tend to learn more about the God that we serve, because through that trial, through that pain, God is still carrying you. If I could be completely and totally transparent, when my mother passed away, I was 20 years old. For those of you who didn't know, I actually started in ministry at the age of 12. And I remember when my brother Greg, who, if anybody knows my brother Greg, he's the most cool person in the world. So cool, we nicknamed him Cat Daddy. So Cat called me and said, little brother, you need to come home. It's not looking too good. So as I started to make my preparations to come home, I was praying. I was laying on my face, begging and pleading God, please save my mother, God. Please bring her out of this situation. Please just cover her and protect her. God, you're going to make a way. I know you're going to make a way, so please make a way. Well, when I got home, I came to the sad news that the doctor said there's really literally nothing else we can do. And that the only thing that's keeping her alive right now is the machine. And we're not going to do anything until y'all give us the okay to pull the plug. My other three brothers, they're a little more mature than I was. They were wiser, they were older. They understood what was going on. But me, I was hard-headed. I said, no, I'm not going to give somebody the permission to take my mother away from me. I'm not going to sit up here and sign off on that. And so, they had to kind of, big brother me, put me in the center and say, hey, look, bro, you got to make a grown man decision today. And you got to be able to say that, we all love mama. That's our mama. But she don't have to struggle anymore. She don't have to go through all the pain. She don't have to deal with the things that we deal with. Just let her go. And with a very sad heart, I allowed it to happen. I agreed with it. But I also, at that moment, had a grievance with God. I said I was going to be totally transparent. I told God, I said, God, I gave you my entire youth. I mean, obviously, I started in ministry at the age of 12, but I was raised up in church. So I have been doing church all my life. And everything that I had as a youth, I gave to you. I gave you all my time to go out and minister. And I saw people were delivered. I saw people be healed. But here I am at this juncture, and I'm just laying and I'm begging and I'm pleading, God, please don't take my mother. And you did that. And I turned my back on God that day. I said, I'm not going to preach no more. I'm not going to do that no more. I can't believe you did this to me. I can't believe you turned your back on me. After all the time that I gave you my childhood. And you couldn't answer that one prayer request that I had?
I gave you.
And again, I always tell this part of my testimony, but I thank my wife because she was the one who brought me back into the church. But we were on our way to Duquesne for the youth conference. And everybody was asleep except me and Minister Betty. And we were talking about this particular subject. And she was sharing with me a testimony that I didn't know about was, when her father passed and how she had those very same feelings. And let me get this straight to you. Up until that point, at about 20 years of life, I had never really faced adversity. I had the little high school problems and things of that nature. But this was my first real live test of my faith because God was removing something that I felt was necessary for my life. But he was still saying, you know what, it doesn't matter because I'm still covering you. I'm still protecting you. I'm still guiding you. I'm still walking you through. But I was too young and too blind and too immature to realize that, to see that even though I denounced the work of God and said that I wasn't going to minister anymore and I turned my back on God, I thank God that he never turned his back on me. And that every single day, even after I said I'm not going to do the work anymore, he said I'm going to still give you the breath of life. I'm going to give you another opportunity to change your mind. But this is what Minister Betty said that really even spoke profoundly to me this many years afterwards. She said, Minister Trent, I started thinking that what if God would have answered my prayer for my father and would have allowed him to live? At some point, that prayer was not going to be answered because our time is expiring on earth. We do understand that. Man knows not the day nor the hour. So even if God would have spared my mother's life at that moment, at some point that prayer would have went up. I would have sent up my timber and I would have said, God, please save my mother. And that prayer would have not been answered. So there are things sometimes that we go and we seek God about. And even in his silence is just showing us that I'm trying to develop something in you. I'm trying to get you to the point to where you don't necessarily even have to come to me about this petty stuff. Call on me for some big stuff. Call on me to deliver somebody else out of something they're going to do. But when it comes to you, I've shown myself to be faithful time and time again. You got the unmitigated gall to still call and ask me to help you out of this situation. I've been God all your life. In every situation that you found yourself in, I delivered you. And it took me to understand that even now, wow, that was a revelation to me. Yes, that prayer wouldn't have been answered, but guess what? God is still the same God that has taken care of me day after day after day after day. My brothers and my sisters, you might be going through something right now. You might be in a season where you feel that God is being silent. I'm laying on my face and I'm praying for an intervention and heaven is silent. But let me encourage you that even though it seems that heaven is silent, God is still working around the clock. After telling God about his adversaries, God's silence in the situation puzzled him, David then comes to a realization. He surmises that instead of trying to understand why God is perceived to be silent, that he needed to get back to praising, and get this, not privately, but he did it publicly. Sister Keisha, can you pull up verse 22 for me, please? Come on, let's read verse 22. Let's read that out. Come on. What does verse 22 say?
I will tell my people
what you gonna do? You gotta go to the other side.
what you have done. I will praise you in their assembly. Praise him, you servants of the Lord. Honor him, you descendants of Jacob. Worship him, you people of Israel.
I told y'all don't know when to shout. Come on, what did he not do? Stop right there. See, sometimes you just got to let the scriptures go ahead and preach the message, because sometimes my words ain't enough. I don't care what is going on. You know what? You did this to me. You knocked me off course, but now I realize I found my praise in my moment of pain. But instead of praising privately, he said, I will tell my people what you have done, and I will praise them in the assembly. So what you have to do is move past the point of private praise and get to the point where you can worship God anywhere, anyhow. It doesn't matter if you're on your job. It doesn't matter if you're in the church. God, I will praise you anyhow. It doesn't matter what I'm going through. It doesn't matter how I'm feeling. It doesn't matter the situations that belie me. God, I'm going to praise you anyhow. And not only will I praise you, but I'm going to do it in the assembly of the people, because the people need to know what good of a God I serve. I dare somebody to go ahead and stand up right now and start to proclaim the goodness of your God. You've been silent for too long. You've been sitting here taking every attack that the enemy has given. But God is my witness. I'm going to stand and proclaim your greatness. No other God can do what you can do. And because I did it privately, now I have to do it publicly. I had to learn myself. You see, some of y'all wonder why I'm so crazy with my worship, why I'm so crazy with my praise, because I did it privately too long. And God said, okay, the private thing is good, but I need you to go ahead and let the people know in the assembly what I've done. Because somebody else might be living in a season of silence, and they might have been going through the same thing that you're going through. And because you see that God has carried me and brought me out, then you see that God can do it for him, then I know he can do it for me. And then you start to encourage one for another. It doesn't matter what goes on in your life. The enemy has no reign here. I'm going to praise you amongst the people. We've been silent in church too long. Come on, somebody. We have been silent in the house of God. He has done a great and miraculous things, and we just sit up there. Praise you, God. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. No, I'm sorry, but God has done too much in my life for me to sit there and give him some sorry praise. God, I praise your name. God, I lift you up. I magnify you, God. Because when I was low, you picked me up. When praying for the day that Mount Joy starts to go ahead and give some praise in front of people, that people will know exactly how good this God is that we serve. If you did it way back then, oh, I'm a firm believer that God, you're going to do it right now in this season. Oh, come on, somebody just ought to go ahead and lift up holy hands. Lift up your voice. You know, we sit up here Sunday after Sunday, and sometimes as a praise team, we feel like we're cheerleaders trying to edge you on. But I'm waiting for the day where people come busting through the doors just ready to praise. Just ready. I can't wait to go ahead and explain how good my God has been. God brought me from last Sunday all the way to this Sunday. I wouldn't have made it even into Monday if it wasn't for your love. We sit too silent as if God ain't done nothing for you. And even after hearing this message, somebody will still be silent. But I'm praying that one day God will awaken us, that he will shake something in your spirit. I'm dreaming of a day that we have crazy, radical worship from every single person that is sitting in the pew. That you ain't got to be as loud as me and Jay, but you can send up your timber just the same. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. You can't keep your praise to yourself. God has been too good. Remember, this is the same David that at the beginning was questioning God. Why have you forsaken me? Why aren't you listening to me? Why aren't you coming to my aid? But verse 22 came around. He said, you know what? Even in the midst of my pain, I still recognize who you are. I praise you in the midst of the people. Hallelujah. Go ahead and go to verse 25. Go ahead and go to verse 25. Go ahead and read for me, y'all. Read for me. In the full assembly. Come on, somebody praise him. Come on, where you doing it? Hold on, let me stop right there. Let me stop y'all right there. I'm going to give you the praise in the presence of others that worshiped you. You know why I'm doing it in the presence of others that worshiped you? Because when they were worshiping God, they were praying for you. They were pulling you out. And so I just want to pay a little bit of respect to the fact that they prayed for me, that they pulled me to this place. So I can dance, I can shout, I can scream because God has had the victory. Go ahead, verse 26. Somebody hungry in here, about to get food. Come on, verse 27. Come on. All nations. All races. Hold up. Now we the Soul Saving Station, what? Christ Crusaders, what? And what? International, what? What? So that didn't say that we was going to keep it right here at 432 Hill Street, but that we were going to raise up an international praise. My God from heaven. Sister Ivy, don't worry, we coming soon with the missions ministry because people about to understand that God is doing such a work here at 432 Hill Street that we won't even be able to contain it in these walls. How do I know? Pastor has already prophesied that we move into another location. So if you believe that and you're believing on God, then somebody ought to be able to say, I'm going to praise him in the midst of the people, but not just in my people, but all people will praise his name. Hallelujah. 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 Dealing with silence, it's hard. You know, even in the political landscape, you know, we sang songs like, God bless America, my country 'tis of thee, bless this land. And the best you could do was Trump. Clearly, he must be silent. But even in the midst of the silent season, God is still working. Hold on, I got an illustration for y'all. I want to prove to y'all that God is still working. You know, when I was coming before God with this message, I was preparing for our trip to Duquesne, and I pulled out this. Now, what's wrong with this? It's wrinkled. It's wrinkled. Y'all about to get a testimony from a shirt right now. You see, you're about to understand exactly how God moves in silence, but is still moving. Y'all pray with me that this works as good as I had it at home. But I'm believing that when we see this illustration, that we don't understand exactly how God works. So I asked my son, I said, son, I need you to help me. And he did, thank God for him. He wasn't working too much over the weekend. And he said he would give me a hand with this. So my son is going to be, I was like, these are all right. My son is going to be the voice of the shirt. Okay? Now I want y'all to pay attention because we are the shirt. We are the shirt. That's right, guys. And we're about to learn something. Now I'm sure while going through this process, the shirt got some questions. So, Mr. Shirt, if you would just go ahead and let the people know what's on your mind, Mr. Shirt.
Hey man, what are you doing? Like, chill. Like, it's hot, man. They were burning me. What are you doing? Chill. It's hot. It's hot. It's hot. It's hot. Get off. Get off. Get off. Get it off now. Like, get off. Get off of me. Is anybody else hot right now? Like, it's burning in. Like, it's hot. Like, that is turning hot right now. Stop it. Thank you. Get that off of me.
Notice through the complaining, through the questioning, there's no answer. Shirt is getting silence.
Oh my, you did it again. Stop. Like, stop what you're doing right now. Yeah, get that off of me. Like, it's like, oh my gosh. Like, that is hurt. That hurts so bad. Like, oh my god. Oh my gosh. Please, stop. Turn that off. Like, you see what you're doing? You're making smoke rise from me. Stop me right now. Like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you not listening? Hello? 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 Can you hear me, please? Like, hello?
I just want y'all to know y'all got the same testimony of the shirt. That's how y'all cry out to God sometimes. Even in the midst of him doing some things to you and for you, you're still crying out. And I don't understand it. Go ahead, Mr. Shirt. What else you got to say?
Please. Why are you doing this? Stop, please. Please stop, please. I'm begging you. Why? You know this is burning me, so why are you doing this to me? Please explain. Please, why are you not answering me? Please answer. Why are you not answering me? Please tell me why you're doing this to me. Don't you know this is burning me? Why are you doing this to me? Please stop.
Okay. Yeah, that's right, Mr. Bible. I'm getting a free press right now. Hallelujah. Praise God. Now, I'm not going to iron it all the way, but let me show y'all something. How does the shirt look now? It looks a little better? Okay, so I need y'all to understand. See, this is the testimony of the shirt. And this is how the shirt's going to testify to y'all. You see, the first question or the first complaint that Mr. Shirt said was, hey, don't you feel the heat? Hey, it's burning me. There's some heat. Now, God's going to go ahead and answer now. And if God was going to answer, he would say, you know what, Mr. Shirt? I have no intentions of hurting you. But you got to understand that I'm about to take you to places and present you in front of people in the way that you looked when I first got my hands on you. You weren't presentable. You weren't able to present yourself to people. So I gotta get here. I gotta prep you. I gotta put a little heat on you just to iron out the wrinkles in your life so that you can become a credible and presentable witness for me. You see, that's what we don't understand is that sometimes we feel the heat and we feel that God is being silent and we're begging and we're pleading, God, please, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? But he's only doing it to present you faultless before the King. The second thing, he said, well, hold up. How do you know you're not going to burn me like this? This is hot. He even fell off. Oh, God, it's so hot. How do you know you're not going to burn me? And God is saying, well, Mr. Church, you got to understand. When I saw you, there was something about you that I desired. So I went and I picked you up out of all the other garments that were there. But I picked you and I took you to the cashier. And I said, you know what?
I'll pay for this. I'll pay for this.
I got to pay for this. We're going to get that back. I gotta pay for this. Now get this. I saw you and I wanted you. So I paid for you and I redeemed a price for you. And that's where we stand right now. Don't worry about the heat. Don't worry about the press. I'm never going to hurt you or harm you. I loved you so much that I paid for you. Oh, come on. I wish I had somebody that realized that God has paid the price for their life. And it doesn't matter the heat that you're going through and the things that are happening. He's already paid for you. Now, y'all notice the third time,
Hallelujah.
there was a little bit of steam coming out the iron.
Yes, sir. It got hot.
And he said, oh my God, it's even steam coming out. You pressing me that hard. There's steam that's coming out. But if you notice, before I started the ironing process, I looked at the label and I looked at the tag.
How much you need?
Because there's instructions on what type of material the shirt is. And what I did when I plugged the iron up, I didn't just go to any old setting, but I set it exactly to where I knew it was going to be just enough heat that was going to be able to press you and make you presentable. Even though you felt the steam, even though you felt the heat, I made sure that I did it according to what the label said the instructions was. In other words, I know just how much heat you can take. I know exactly what you need to get through to your next. Oh, come on, y'all a Bible church, so I got to give y'all a biblical witness. Y'all remember Paul, right? Paul wrote over 60% of the New Testament. Paul said, God, he went to God on 3 different occasions and said, God, I got this thorn in my side. He went as far as to say that it was like a messenger from Satan that was buffeting or eating on him. He said, I came to you on 3 separate occasions and asked you to remove it from me. Now, we all know Paul. Again, he wrote 60% of the New Testament. One would think that God would have said, you know what, Paul? Instantly pulled it out of him. But that wasn't the answer he got. The answer that Paul got was, my grace is sufficient for you. And my strength is made perfect in your weakness. There are people that are going through things that have that thorn in their side, and they're praying and they're in the silent season, feeling like, God, you need to go ahead and remove this thing. You need to take this thing away from me. But understand this, that God's grace is sufficient and that his strength will be made perfect in your weakness. It doesn't matter what you're going through, the things that are happening, the amount of heat that is being put on you. God said, I allowed the steam to come because there were some tough wrinkles that I had to get out. And I had to knock out those tough wrinkles so that I can make you presentable. I already paid the price for you, so I showed you that I loved you. And I made sure that I gave you just enough heat to get you to a presentable place to where you can present your testimony. I told y'all the shirt was going to testify to you. And I pray that somebody is realizing that even though the heat is on, and the pressure is building. Verse 3, but thou art holy. And that's all that matters, is that you recognize that even through the heat, even through the pressing, even through the hard, hot steam, God is still just preparing you for greatness. Even when he was silent, he was still working. Oh my God, y'all can catch that. Even when he was silent, he was still working. So let this be encouragement for you that when you're in a silent season, you don't have to worry, you don't have to fret, because the God that I serve is working tirelessly behind the scenes. And though he might not address you with the answer, my Bible tells me that he's already worked it out, and that I don't have to worry about anything that happens on this side. And even if it's too much, even if that thorn never is removed. Y'all heard of generational curses? Yeah. It might not be for you. That thing that you're suffering with, that thing that you're dealing with, might not be for you. But it might be for your children or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren. Somebody has lost somebody that they love to lung cancer and refuse to be smoking. Somebody has lost someone to an accident where somebody died because they were drunk driving and they refused to drink. See, what you have to understand is, even though you don't understand it, you don't understand the pressing, just know that God understands everything. My thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. Come on, somebody give glory to our God. You know that even in the middle of the press, even in the middle of the silence, God is still working. Come on, I said give glory to your God. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And then I remember, my grandmother used to sing this song. She said, I've had many tears and sorrows. I've had questions for tomorrow. There's been times I didn't know right from wrong. But in every situation, God gave me blessed consolation, that my trials come only to make me strong. Come on, if y'all know it, just lift that up with me. Through it all. Through it all, I learned to trust in God. Through it all, through it all, I learned to depend on God. I just want to do the third verse. It says, and I thank God for the mountains, and I thank him for the valleys, and I thank him for the storms he brought me through. Yes. This is where it testifies to. For if I never had a problem, I would know that God could solve them. I never know what faith in God could do. Come on, let's sing it like we mean it. Through it all, yes. Through it all, I learned. Yes, I learned. way for you through it all, through every situation that you're going through. God is still in control. Even though you slay me, yet will I serve you. Even though I go through all these temptations, trials, and tests, you are still holy, and I still will serve you, God. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. God, I just want to cover everybody, God. I pray, God, that even though some of us might be in a time of silence, God, that you, God, are still very loud in your actions and your ways, God. God, that even though your silence is perceived by us, God, that the real perception is that you are just making a way and trailblazing a way for us, God. So, God, I pray that if we are in that silent season, that you would allow us, God, to align ourselves with your will for our lives, God. And, God, that you would continue to bless us because you said your grace is sufficient. And, God, we're trusting and we're believing that today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen, 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 amen. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. 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 Now unto him who is able to keep us from faultless, present us faultless before the King. Be glory, dominion, and power forever and ever. And the saints of God said,
Amen.
Amen. Go ahead, shake somebody's hand and encourage them that even in the silent season, God is still here. Men, I need to meet with you shortly after the service, just for a couple of seconds. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus.